I believe you won an Emmy for Best Actor in 2019. I'm curious if you have any healthy competition with Keri, because she has maybe one more Emmy nomination than you, but you are the only one who won for the Americans.
No, I just feel bad. I just thought what she did with Elizabeth was an incredible performance, and I just wish Carrie got it because I just thought she was so incredible in it. But she has a Golden Globe, she has a Screen Actors Guild Award. She's fine. I'm not worried about it.
Do you have plans to appear in something together again at some point?
Yeah, we always talk about it. I keep joking that I'm going to come onto The Diplomat as like a British diplomat.
Hello and welcome to Obsessed, the podcast. I'm Matt Wilstein from The Daily Beast, and today on the show, I am thrilled to be joined by the Emmy-winning actor you might know from shows like The Americans, Perry Mason, and The Beast in Me. Now he's the star of Widow's Bay, the Apple TV horror comedy that The Daily Beast has declared the best new show of the year. Matthew Rhys, welcome to Obsessed, the podcast.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for such accolades, plaudits, and thank you for Daily Beast for such a endorsement.
Oh yeah, well we all love the show over here, and I am personally obsessed with this show, and I wanted to have you on once people have had a chance to watch a good chunk of the season. So people will have had to been able to watch about the first half by the time they're hearing this, and I wanted you to kind of start by describing the character that you play on this show, maybe for anyone who hasn't checked it out yet.
Yes, I play Mayor Tom Loftus, who is the mayor of a small island town, 40 nautical miles from the coast of New England. And he is hell bent on kind of dragging the island into the 21st century and making it a new tourist haven or mecca. Indeed, turning it into the next Martha's Vineyard, much to sometimes the disgust of the locals, or more the distrust, as they try to warn him that the island has a checkered past.
It really does. And the I described this show as a horror comedy, which I think is how it's kind of been talked about. But I do think it's kind of hard to categorize. When you were first, signing on to do this, reading it, what were those conversations like about how you were going to find this tone of something that is truly scary, but also has a lot of laughs, is very funny, throughout.
It was funny when I got sent it by my agent, they went, "It's a horror comedy," and you kind of go, "Oh God," because that's a tough tone to crack. And then I read it, and I was kind of blown away by it for a number of reasons. I'd never read anything like it, but also because I was impressed by the fact it did both things it said on the tin. I laughed in moments, and then there were other moments like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" And also the simple fact, I was like, I want to know what happens to these people and what happens to this island. I genuinely wanted to know how it ended. Um, and then, when I spoke to Hero Marine and Katie Dippold, um, they were just very honest about it. They said, yes, it is a tough tone to crack, but we're not really trying to make a horror comedy. We're trying to build a real world with real people, and we play everything for real, and that's it. And hopefully the comedy is situational or character driven, and as is the horror, and so we shouldn't be playing one or the other.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of show, but on the one in a way, it reminded me of Severance, another Apple show where you have Adam Scott, who was on Parks and Rec, which Katie Dippold also got her start writing for that show, and
Yeah.
it has the elements of a office comedy, but with all of these other genre things pulled in. So I think there's a similar thing here where we have these characters, these very funny, like archetypal characters that you might meet in a show like The Office or Parks and Rec, but they're put into this very different, like Stephen King-esque situation. So I think that's where a lot of the great stuff comes out of that.
I think that's so perfectly put, really. If you take The Office and you put it into a Stephen King setting. Yeah, because you have this group of people who work at the town hall in the municipal building, um, and they're kind of beautifully fleshed out, but in that way, I think sometimes small coastal island towns can produce is very unique, salty individuals, which makes for great comedy.
Mhm. Yeah. Are you, you have not had a ton of opportunity to show, I think, how funny you are on screen and a lot of the other work that you've done, and you really get to lean into the comedy on this show. Was that part of what appealed to you too? Because I think we are seeing a different side of you than maybe people who've only seen, The Americans, which has some humor in it, but in a different way, or some
Yeah,
of the other stuff you've done that's pretty dark and serious.
absolutely. I've never done a comedy, and the same. I was incredibly drawn to it because it was something I've always wanted to do, but very scared of it. Also, I think comedy is a very specific beast, and there are those people who do it incredibly well, and they're their own wonderful band of merry people. But in the same way, again, Katie and Mira said, "We're not playing a comedy. Don't play a comedy. You play like a drama." So it just took the onus off comedy straight away. And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's Katie's like, you're not landing big gags. They're not the kind of archetypal gags. These are kind of more moments. If hopefully if played for real, deliver the comedy in it."
I saw you said somewhere in another interview that this show did take you out of your comfort zone, and I'm wondering if you have an example of that, a scene or something that you had to play that you just felt like you had never really been asked to do before.
Yeah, the more the more kind of extreme elements as they begin. And also, also there are, can we talk spoilers in this?
Yeah, yeah.
There's, obviously because of the horror, the elements are far more extreme. And so sometimes the reaction has to be very extreme. And that was kind of a departure for me. Like I kept going, is this right? Does this feel real? Because you put someone in some very extreme moments, you're trying to play them as real, but even the reactions are extreme. And sometimes I go, oh my God. And then there were other elements that I think could have put us into farce, and if you're not landing in the right place, it will become farce. Kind of talking to kind of people who've been dead for 300 years,
Yeah.
Um, yeah, don't spoil that one. That to me was like, oh, when I was going, is this landing right? Is this landing in the right place in the right, real place? Those were kind of when I felt I was out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I think your character is so interesting too on the show, Tom, because he is very reluctant to fall into this superstition and all these things that the people who grew up on this island believe, but he kind of has no choice at a certain point because of what he keeps encountering. So you're also kind of tracking over the course of the season how he's evolving and just having to come to accept these things in a way that he just wouldn't at all at the beginning. So how did you kind of work through that?
And what I love about Katie's writing is that she loads. I'm trying to use like sporting analogies or card analogies of both of which I've never played. I've never played poker. I don't play card games. I don't play baseball. But I'm like gonna stack the deck. I don't know what that means. Or load the bases. I got a fair idea what that means. But when you meet these people, what I'm trying to say is their backstory is very rich and very kind of layered and detailed. And so Loftus has lost his wife. He's a single parent. He's trying to kind of bring up a son in a place. I think he wants the island to flourish so his son could flourish. So his son will grow up in a place of opportunity. And and so what it did to me, I felt it blinkers him. He kind of goes, "There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. You just had a lot of bad luck. There's nothing wrong." And people keep going, "No, no, there's something very wrong." He's going, "No, there's not. No, there's not. Tra la la, tra la la." And then eventually he has to go, "Okay, something's very wrong here." So I enjoyed that kind of unfolding, blinkered unfolding until he finally goes, "Okay, something is desperately wrong with this island."
Hmm. Yeah. I've talked to actors and heard from actors who appear in horror films who are not particularly horror fans themselves. Like they don't feel like they don't like watching horror, but they can be in it because I think it's very different, right? Filming it and you don't have the music and the lighting and it's different.
Yeah.
How did that work for you? Because on the one hand, you have to play the real fear that we're seeing as an audience, but it's not really happening while you're filming it. So how do you what's the secret to playing this kind of very fearful moments that your character experiences?
Yeah, I always I had a great acting teacher when I was in college. She's like, you just have to use the incredible as if it was as if I were this person in this moment. You could just got to lean into your imagination. Some of the more some of the imagery. images were just very potent. Like the clown racing towards me was terrifying. The sea hag on the lonely road as my headlights kind of hit her was terrifying.
Even in the moment.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh my god, this is creepy." So you just lean into the feeling it's giving you, and just, try and give it as much of the, as if as possible.
Mhm. We won't spoil anything about the end of the season, but it does feel like the kind of show that could go on and go to different places and continue. Is there anything that you've heard about that, or is that a hope for you that you would be able to do more of this? Or
Oh, yeah, I would love. I mean, also, I'm just of a point, like, we gotta figure out what the island is. We gotta that has to be figured out.
yeah, I think we can say it doesn't all get resolved, and you don't know everything by the end of the season.
Oh god, no. Only you're just literally taking the Band-Aid off to reveal a very deep wound. So, smartly from Katie Dippold, and I was kind of like, "Well, so what happens if there's a season 2? What happens?" She's like, "I don't know." So I think she's as in for as much as a roller coaster of figuring out season 2. But I was like, "I hope he doesn't crack the island. I hope the island keeps us going for another season, because I could do this for a long time." It's a lot of fun. We had an incredible troupe on it of, reprobates who just made it very fun. Like, Stephen Root, Kid O'Flynn, Jeff Hiller, Dill Dickey, very, very funny, funny people.
Yeah. I think anyone who's watching or listening to this interview might notice that you sound a little bit different than pretty much every character that you've played on television. And I
Yeah.
did want to ask you about, your real accent versus all of these various Americans that you've been asked to play in different shows.
Yeah.
Was it was it hard to master the American accent at first? Because I think most people might not even know that that you are from Wales.
I think we as those in the kind of on the scepter aisle grow up watching and obsessed by American television. So from a very early age, we're going out, into the schoolyard, pretending to play playing the eight, pretending to be the 18, and trying to mimic the sounds then. So from a very early age, you're mimicking the American sound. So I don't think it's such a leap for us. We're raised so heavily by American culture and music. We're kind of we're very attuned to it. Making it kind of and then I did a long running play when in my early 20s in the West End with Kathleen Turner, where to play an American. I did The Graduate. So that helped. I kind of had to nail it or bed it in early then, and then it helped me, when I came here. But it's an ongoing process. I still work at it. I still have to work at it. I still when I'm doing it, it's very conscious. There are times before I open my mouth, I'm thinking what the sound is before I commit to it.
Are there subtle variations too that you found for different characters? Someone who's maybe from New England, like this guy, versus obviously in the Americans, you're playing someone who grew up in Russia and is doing their own kind of imitation of what an
Yeah.
American is. So that must have been complicated. So do you think about that as well?
Actually, The Americans was great because I was playing a foreigner pretending to be an American. So I was like, "That's me." Yeah. So, like, if it ever slipped, I was like, "Well, he's Russian, he's not American." So that was, like, the greatest gift of all time. I did a show called Brothers and Sisters, which was set in Pasadena. We were meant to be a little more Californian. I actually found California a little tricky because it's very subtle, in the same way Perry Mason was, which is an older Californian sound. So I found Perry Mason and Brothers and Sisters harder. And then Loftus in Widow's Bay is meant to be a real outsider, so he's not meant to have any of the kind of Massachusetts accent. Like, he's slightly resented for growing up a mainlander, and in a way where my accent was always meant to sound other to everyone else. So, I went for a more kind of general American so that they're doing more extreme Massachusetts sounds, I stand out more.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of what Tom sounds like so people can hear the contrast in real time?
Yeah, and I tried to lift his pitch a little, and slightly more nasal because he's always kind of a little bit worried, and always trying to, "Listen, I'm just trying to do the best for you. I don't know why you're giving me such a hard time. I'm trying to do the best for you." There's always a slight plead in his voice. It's never quite a lower, centered register.
Yeah, a little anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Um, so we mentioned the Americans, which I think is the role that changed both your career and your life, because
Yeah, oh yeah.
your partner, Keri Russell, on that show as well. Um, I'm curious if you remember the first scene that you shot with her for the show and just what it felt like to be acting with her for the first time.
We what I do remember, because I auditioned like 3 times with Kerry, and then it was a scene in the first season where it's kind of brilliant. This is where Joe Weisberg is brilliant. He shows you the bomb underneath the table because in the very first pilot episode, Philip says, "I think I want to defect," and um, Carrie's character Elizabeth slaps me across the face, and that's the scene I'd auditioned with, where she'd been slapping me for seemingly weeks. So I remember that very clearly. I just remember what a brilliant dramaturgical kind of tool to kind of show the audience there's this massive divide between these two people, but ultimately they need each other. And how will that resolve itself? Um, so I remember that. I remember this one. I think the first scene was when I sent something, and I'm behind her, and she just brings up a knife to my throat. And I remember going, "I don't know this person at all." And Gavin O'Connor was saying, "Just bring the knife really fast up to his throat."
Was it a real knife? Was it sharp?
Yeah, it wasn't sharp, but I was like, "Take a good crack on the old Adam's apple." But she's such a perfectionist and a dancer. She was like millimeter perfect every time, and I
Mm.
was like, "God, she's really good."
I believe you won your an Emmy for Best Actor in 2019 for the show's final season. I'm curious if you have any healthy competition with Kerry because I think I was looking. She has maybe one more Emmy nomination than you, but you are the only one who won for the Americans. So do you ever kind of get into it back and forth or anything? Do you feel that?
No, because I just thought what she did with Elizabeth was an incredible performance, and I not to take anything from Claire Foy from The Crown because she was incredible in that. I just wish Kerry got it because I just thought she was so incredible in it. Um, but she has a Golden Globe, she has a Screen Actors Guild Award. She's fine. I'm not worried about it. Yeah, she's got a ton.
It's now been a while since you've worked together on that show. I would imagine that you might get approached to do things together. Is there a desire to do that? Do you have plans to appear in something together again at some point?
Yeah, we always talk about it. Well, it's tough. It'd have to be the right thing because I just think it can feel a bit like stunt casting. If do you know what I mean? It would just have to be the right thing. But yeah, we would love to. And certainly don't rule it out. And I keep joking that I'm gonna come onto the Diplomat as like a British diplomat.
Yeah, that would be good.
We'll see.
In terms of other things that are coming up, you're currently working on the new season of Presumed Innocent? Is that right?
We wrapped it last week.
Oh, you're all done. Wow.
All done. Yeah,
Is there again, I'm sure that it's shrouded in mystery, but
shrouded.
what has that experience been like for you at least? What was it a different experience than some of the other stuff you've done, or how did it go?
No, it felt very reminiscent of Perry Mason to me. Just back in the back in courtroom, you know, appealing to the jury. Yeah, it was very reminiscent of Mason. But it was great. I got to work with Rachel Brosnahan and the incredible Fiona Shaw. Well, I mean, they're all incredible. Courtney B. Vance, yeah, Jack Rayner. It's incredible cast.
Very cool. I'm always curious if we might get more of your most underrated project, perhaps ever, the wine show, anytime soon.
We're always in
Is
talks.
that something you're thinking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. Me, Matthew Good, James Purefoy. We're always like, where are we going next? It's a tough one to get us all together. Although I know Dominic West did one. So what we'd like to do is to unite all four of us now to do somewhere. Um, that has to be, it's getting us all off at the same time. Is what we'd love to do.
Where would you go? What's the dream location to go drink wine and
It's hard because the other thing is it's like the wine show really wants to try and find somewhere not obvious. So it's not gonna be Napa or I keep pushing Argentina. I'm always like, let's do Malbec and Gaucho work. Um, yeah, they really want to do somewhere like different, like they were like, yeah, just the strange places that grow wine that you wouldn't expect, like Kyrgyzstan, places like that.
I want to run through some questions, sort of reflections, looking back on your career. Is there a surprising thing that people come up to you and want to talk to you about that they recognize you from, or what's the thing that sort of like you get a lot that maybe people wouldn't expect?
I do surprisingly, there's a certain group of people who say, "I enjoyed you in the last ever Columbo." Because
Wow.
yeah, I did the last ever Columbo with Peter Falk, about 26 years ago. And he was very kind to me. He got me my Screen Actors Guild. He got me into the guild because we were doing a BBC A&E co-production in New Zealand, and he was like, "What are you doing next?" And I was like, "Nothing." And he goes, "I'm gonna go do a Columbo. You wanna be in it?" And I just assumed he was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." And he was true to his word. He called my house, weeks later. My mother came into the living room. She said, "There's a man called Peter Falk on the phone." I went, "Oh my god!" And this is before cell phones and pagers. And he's like, "Yeah, I meant what I said. You want to come to LA?" And I was like, "Sure." And he picked me up at LAX in his Range Rover.
Wow.
I know,
What a mensch.
I know,
That's amazing.
it really is.
Do you have a do you have a role that got away, something that you auditioned for that you really wanted and didn't get?
It's not that it's got away. I've been trying to do. There's a Welsh version of Braveheart that I've been trying to get made. When I saw Braveheart, I was like, "Oh shit!" And now we've got to wait 20 years, 25 years until we can do the Welsh version. And it's been 25 years. So I've been trying to get like a limited series of this, you know, epic, Welsh epic going. But it's a tough boulder to push up the hill.
Maybe it wasn't a dream role, but I did hear that you auditioned for James Bond around the time that Daniel Craig got it. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah. We were all kind of a lot of that. We were all kind of invited into the Broccoli's office, which is an incredible office. And you were told to read Casino Royale and wear a dark suit. And yeah, I remember and the first question they said was like, "What would you do different with Bond?" And I was like, "Oh shit." I was like, "This is either a trick question or you shouldn't do it's like either it needs full departure or you don't do anything different." So as a joke, I said, eye patch, and there was just like a stony silence. So I knew I'd fucked it.
Yeah, is that what cost you the role?
Yeah, I was like, "Wooden leg? Parrot? I don't know." So yeah, they're like, "Thank you, next." I was like, "Okay, thanks."
Now, don't you wanna know what Daniel Craig how he answered that question?
Look, Daniel Craig only had to walk in and they probably went, "Oh, there he is. There's Bond."
When you look back, is there something that you said no to at the time that you now wish you could go back and say yes to?
Um, no, I don't think so. I pretty much say yes to everything. You're so scared of never working again.
You do work a lot.
Well, yeah, 3 kids. Yeah, no, there's nothing. There's no rule.
Anything you said yes to that you wish you could go back and say no to?
No, no, I've got no career regrets. Everything has kind of evolved in a way that's. I'm just very, I'm very grateful for everything the way it's turned out. So no, I don't regret anything. Everything is I always find such a stepping stone or a learning curve, or you never go wrong. You're always learning something from something.
Yeah, I feel like in addition to all of the things where you've played major roles, you've had so many great little one-off, appearances and things, like thinking about, Girls, in that great episode where you played this kind of very distasteful character, opposite, Lena Dunham. Um, I'm curious about that one. Did you have any concerns when she came to you and said, "Why is she thinking of me for this?" Or what?
Well, that was my first question was like, I was like, "Why did you come to me for this?" And she goes, "Because," she said, "Well, Richard Shepard, actually, the director, said, well, initially you want her to think that he's a decent guy that you'd be happy to be in his apartment. You don't immediately go, 'Oh my god, he's fucking scary,' because you'd be saying, 'Well, why don't you just leave?' Do you know what I mean?"
Yeah, the charm was key.
Yeah, or disarming, or just kind of normal, like a nice, ordinary dad that, kind of go, "Yeah, I'll hang out for a bit." And then it evolves. So, I was relieved to hear that.
The other one more recent that I loved you in seeing briefly is, Saturday Night, where you got to play George Carlin.
Oh my
Uh,
god, yeah.
were you a George Carlin fan, and what was it like to kind of study him a little bit and become him?
Sort of, I mean, yeah, terrifying. I love Colin. Um, it's weird. I think people remember late Colin, where he has a very specific voice, and if you listen to his voice in when he did the first episode of SNL, it is different. But he's like American comedy royalty. So there's a part of me that's going, "Oh my god, kind of a Welshman play Colin." Um, yeah, just I felt the pressure of it because I know it was brief, but you want to get that's the pressure is like you don't have the time, you don't have the real estate to kind of play around. You got to hit it relatively quick. Um, and I certainly felt the pressure of Colin because people have an idea of who he is in their minds. But I loved it.
You've had the chance to share the screen with a lot of incredible actors. I would say, putting your wife aside, is there an actor that you just got to do a scene with who just blew you away and you sort of couldn't believe what you were seeing, up close?
Anthony Hopkins
Mm.
in Titus was just unbelievable to watch, as was Tom Hanks in Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Yeah, you got to work with him a couple times, right?
Yeah, Sally Field in Brothers and Sisters. She always kind of flew me away. Yeah, I've been very lucky to watch and learn.
Yeah, I will say Brothers and Sisters is a big one in my house. It's I love it, but it's really one of my wife's all-time favorite shows. So I don't want to ignore it in this conversation. Is there a Sally Field story maybe that comes to mind, that of just getting to spend time with her that stands out in your time there?
Yeah, it was my first big job in America, and she really showed me. I've been fortunate to be kind of to have a few main parts, and she really taught me how to lead and how to kind of set a professional tone. Her work ethic is I've never seen anyone like it. Um, and kind of her tenacity and getting it right and mining the best out of every scene, but just kind of blew me away with. And at first, I was having so much fun, and me and Dave Annabelle plays my younger brother in it. We were having fun one day, and Sally's went, if you two don't knock it off, I will crack both your heads open with this wooden spoon." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that's when I was like, You need to take it seriously."
Well, and she was playing the role. She was playing the mother.
But she takes it. She has an inordinate amount of fun, but she takes it very seriously, as it should be taken.
Yeah. The last question I like to ask, is there a story from your career that makes you laugh now, but really was not funny when it happened?
Oh, that's a good one. Huh. Um. Yeah, I was on stage at the Royal Shakespeare Company playing Romeo, and, I knew I had this brief moment where I could have a bathroom break, and I ran, and it was a traditional, piece where we were wearing tights, and I had, like, light blue tights on, and I finished my business. I went to wash my hands, and it was those faucets, which are like a kind of mushroom top. You slam it, and it kind of, lets X amount of water go for a minute, and I slammed it so hard this water gushed out from the sink and it kind of scooped up over the sink and just landed all over my crotch as I could hear the tanner going, "Mr. Rhys, you're called to stage, Mr. Rhys." So I go on to stage with these pale blue tights and he just looks like I peed myself. And I remember the guy playing Benvolio looking at me going, I went, "Oh," and then when I finally turned to face the Swan Theatre with 1,000 people, this gasp went up from the audience where they were like, "Oh, he's wet himself." That was actually, you said, "Do I now laugh about it?" I still don't laugh about it. It was awful then, and now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, it was awful.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they thought maybe it was an artistic choice. Like in this scene, Romeo has wet himself.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh, yeah, right, because he's like, "Oh, interest." No, because if they thought that, they wouldn't have gone, "Oh, oh my god."
That's great. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you for doing it. Widow's Bay is streaming now on Apple TV with new episodes premiering every Wednesday. Matthew Rhys, thank you so much for being here.
Matt, thanks for the invite and the endorsement. Much appreciated.
All right, that was so much fun. What a delightful man that Matthew Rhys is. If you're not watching Widow's Bay, what are you doing? Check it out. It is so, so good. Please subscribe to us on YouTube at the Obsessed channel, where you can watch videos of all of our episodes and leave us a comment to let us know what you think about this show. You can also follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a rating and review there as well. We want to hear from you, and we love to hear your questions, and maybe we'll get to them on this show at some point as well. Thank you to our producer, Rachel Passer. We'll be back with an all-new episode of Obsessed the Podcast very soon.